Hi everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Zoe. I have been a teacher with LSAT Demon for over a month now. I think we're coming up on 2 months, so yay, exciting. This is my Friday class called Into the LR Woods. It's a fanciful approach to foundational LSAT principles. So, as you know, if you've been with a demon for very long, in every single question on the LSAT, our job is to understand the passage. This is a test of reading comprehension. I know one section is called reading comprehension and the other is called logical reasoning, but across the board, our job is to understand what the passage is saying, understand if it's making an argument, and attack it in order to understand what flaw it probably has. In this class, we call that following the trail and picking up the crumbs. So the passage, it really does give you what you need, right, to solve the question. It's a solvable question, and it gives you every piece of information you need. Those are our crumbs. We're gonna pick them up as we go. We're not gonna like run through the woods and just abandon all of the information that has been waiting for us along the way. Not us. Once we understand the passage, we feel like we know what's going on. We're gonna go to the big bad wolf question. It's gonna give us, our project, our endeavor on this question. What the hell are we doing here? We're gonna talk back to that question, right? Most of the questions on the LSAT are predictable. So when we talk back to the big bad wolf, we're gonna give the big bad wolf our prediction. That's gonna guide us through the answer choices to Granny's house lickety split, no problem. Welcome to anyone who is new. I know we have some people who just joined live, so I'm very, very happy to have you in our class. Again, it's all levels, so you don't need to have prepped anything, and it's okay wherever you're at. If you are just beginning or way deep into your LSAT journey, this is a great place for you to be. I've put the syllabus the in the chat. If you can, a lot of you have your cameras turned on. Thank you. I love seeing your faces. My very first class I taught for Into the LR Woods, no one turned their camera on, and I was terrified and daunted. I was like, is this gonna be every Friday? Because I don't know if I can handle that. That's really intense. But it has drastically improved. So thank you, all of you, for coming today, turning your camera on, and nerding out about the LSAT with me. Um, if we go ahead and move into the syllabus, we're starting with a question on eating garlic. Do I have a volunteer who wants to guide us through our fanciful journey to the right answer? Daniel.
I had a question about the link. It looks like it took me to a passage, like an RC passage.
Oh boy. Let's try again. Yeah, I see it in the I
Okay.
see it in the URL. It says drill passage 153. My bad, my bad. Tian, what's up?
Oh, I was just volunteering if you're looking for a volunteer.
Okay, sweet. And Carly, were you volunteering as well?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, cool. We're gonna have Carly take eating garlic, and then Tian, you will be on cue for HDLs.
I have
Oh
a
boy.
question before we start, Miss Zoe. Um,
Yeah.
I was in your class yesterday and I noticed that we have an opportunity to answer the question like on our own because it's like I feel as if I'm going based off what the helper is saying. Like I love that they read it because it helps me interpret it better, but I like to see if I'm able to answer the question without them answering it for me, like maybe a minute or a chance, I don't know if that's even possible.
Yeah, we can try that. It's always good to try out what people need. So, yeah, if that works for you, Victoria, this class we will try out. We will have our volunteer read the passage, and then we can break for we'll say 2 minutes, and then we can all come back. Would that be helpful to other people in the class? Okay, I'm getting a few nods. Cool. And Victoria, you can always do the questions before class if we don't end up retaining this system today, like moving forward. You're always welcome to come to class having done the questions and just get a thorough review of them. But yeah, I think it's always good to try new things. So why not? So Daniel, I'm gonna have, or sorry, no, it was Carly, we're gonna have you read the passage, analyze it, and then I'll tell us to break. Everyone can go write in their their answer they chose, and then we'll get back in and discuss it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so eating garlic reduces the levels of cholesterol and triglycerides in the blood and so helps reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease. Okay, is that the conclusion? Is like I feel like it's a really big statement.
So far, I mean, we're early in, but I would say, yeah, that's a great contender for our conclusion.
Okay.
It's taken a stance. If the next sentence operates as support for it, we know that we're definitely in conclusion territory.
Okay, I also feel like there's gonna be like a causation flaw in here or something. I don't know. Oh,
Yeah,
evidence.
no, that's a great thing to be doing right off the bat is asking yourself, okay, is it that eating garlic reduces the levels of cholesterol and triglycerides, or is it that you've noticed that when people eat garlic, their levels of cholesterol and triglycerides go down? And based on that correlation, you're saying, oh, eating garlic causes the reduction, right? Very,
Yeah.
very good, Carly.
Okay, evidence that eating garlic reduces these levels is that a group of patients taking a garlic tablet each day for 4 months showed a 12% reduction in cholesterol and a 17% reduction in triglycerides. So there was a reduction when they took garlic tablets each day, which sounds not good, but over the same period, a group of similar patients taking a medically inert tablet showed only 2% reduction in triglycerides and a 3% reduction in cholesterol. So, a lot lower, but we don't know. It says that the patients are similar, but I wonder, I don't know. They could differ in different things. That's the reason why the levels are lower or higher for them.
Yeah, so we see where they're getting the correlation, right? But as in almost every correlation situation on the LSAT, we're skeptical. Carly, you point out that they say that they're similar patients. What else is going on that what makes you uh convinced or not convinced that this is a study that proves that eating garlic reduces the levels of cholesterol and triglycerides in the blood?
I'm not too convinced just because I don't know if the garlic is actually what caused that reduction. If there's something else that was in play, I don't know. I could be wrong, but
No, I think you're on the exact line of thinking that really matters here, right? Do we know it was the garlic? That's what the argument wants to prove to us. But do we know anything else about these two groups? Like,
no,
you
I think
know,
we need more information about the actual patients to compare the two.
yeah, you kind of wonder, oh, if one group is exercising or eating garlic in their diet otherwise, which would still, I think, support the correlation. But the study as it stands, right? They're flashing percentages at us and they're trying to kind of show us that, oh, they've definitely proved that eating garlic reduces levels of cholesterol. But yeah, I think Carly has well established here. This doesn't actually show us that these groups are controlled, that this study was done in a way that ensures other factors aren't at play.
Okay. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
So now we're gonna break. Everyone, I'm gonna set a little timer here for 2 minutes. Everyone move through that question, make your prediction, and just write directly to me which answer choice you choose. Be free. Khadijah, what's up?
Hi, Zoe. While everyone is, choosing their answer, I have a question just about studying in general. And that is after we read, I think it's the stem, the question, like the passage.
Yeah, I
I
just
think
call
that's
it the passage.
the passage, yeah. Um, are we supposed to automatically think of what the prompt is going to be, or is that irrelevant?
That's one of the it's a good way to engage with the passage, right? To be familiarizing yourself with how often the LSAT repeats itself. So it proves that you're engaging with the passage if you notice, okay, there's a correlation flaw here. This could be a flaw question. Or, hey, there's a jump in logic here. This could be an assumption. So it's very good practice because it demonstrates that you're processing and understanding the argument as you go. And it also will kind of reinforce to yourself that the LSAT repeats itself over and over and over and over and over. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Khadijah, for that. We're out of our 2 minutes, so I've got lots of people sending me their answers in the chat. Carly, what's up?
A quick question. It kind of had to do with like the question itself because I'm having a hard time like knowing what type of question it is, whether it's supported, evaluate. How important is that to know? Like I'm pretty good at sufficient assumption, necessary assumption, flaw questions, but the other kinds I've just having a hard time identifying what kind of question it is.
Well, I mean, this one uses the verb evaluating. So we're making an evaluation on the argument. That's our question type. Question types are not at all a god to worship on the LSAT. Like if you understand the passage, you're going to be able to predict answer choices for a huge range of question types. That being said, when you read the question, that is the directive that you're working off of, right? That's what's going to lead you. One of the answer choices answers that question. Understanding the question type is, again, as I was saying to Khadijah, it's going to get you used to realizing how repetitive the LSAT is. Help you know that every time you see a supported question, it's like, I just have to make sure the correct answer is in the passage. So in this case, I don't think it matters much whether this is an evaluate, a strengthen, a weaken, because we found the flaw, right, Carly? But yeah, if you're grouping it, it's an evaluate question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So we've got great participation in the chat and some phenomenal predictions, and I think almost all of us found where we needed to be. So Carly, if you want to take us back through, everyone can get their validation or maybe what was missing as they went through the answer choices.
Okay. So it would be most important to determine which one of the following in evaluating the argument. So A, whether the garlic tablets are readily available to the public. No, that just doesn't matter. It's not solving our question. So no. What the
What is
diet
the yeah,
oh
sorry, what does the public have to do with how this study engaged, right? With the
yeah.
garlic tablets?
Okay, so B, what the diets of the two groups were during the period. Well, yeah, because that would give us information about the groups and why their levels might have been different. I think that answers the question, helps us evaluate the argument better. So I picked B. Um,
Yeah,
so
as did the majority of the class, right? If one group has reduced triglycerides and cholesterol, but they're eating 5 servings of vegetables a day, they, ensure that they don't eat any red meat, they don't eat any processed foods, whereas our group that didn't perform as well has McDonald's every day, right? That's going to make a huge difference in our study. And it's not that hard to control for those things. But this passage didn't do it. So Carly is absolutely right. That would help us evaluate how effective this study actually was in finding a causation. So Carly, go ahead and take us through the last 3 answer choices and let's knock them out. They're not going to take us to Granny's house.
yeah, okay. What effects taking the garlic tablets each day for a period of less than 4 months had on the levels of cholesterol and triglycerides? Well, it's not talking about less than 4 months, so we can knock that one out. Is that
Yeah,
a reason out,
yeah, the
right?
time frame is not the issue in the study. Like if you wanted to throw this as 5 months, 8 months, a year, we still don't know what the two groups are doing outside of taking the tablets, right? So
Yeah.
this wouldn't help us evaluate the argument. It would just change a little bit what the study is doing. And that's not what we're looking for.
Okay, D, whether large amounts of garlic are well tolerated by all patients. Oh, just I feel like I could have knocked it out at large amounts of garlic because we're not talking about large amounts of garlic. And we're also not talking about all patients. We're just talking about the two groups of patients, I think. I don't know. But it just immediately was not the right answer.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, E, whether the manufacturer of the garlic tablet cites the study in advertising again. This really doesn't have anything to do with advertising. So I would knock it out.
Yeah, she's gone. That that is a pointless ruse designed to distract us from Granny's house. But as we did the work in the passage, we discovered, hey, this is a correlation causation problem. And do you know what? One of the things that's going to inhibit your ability to prove causation is controlling for other issues. Carly found answer choice B shows us a way that we could control the two groups and know, like, all right, so maybe if everyone is eating the same diet, we could have a little bit more of an understanding of how effective this study would be. Great work, everyone. I saw great participation in the chat and a, a really good understanding of attacking the argument, finding our correct answer. Do we have any questions for Carly or I before we move on? Or Carly or me? You guys rock. No problem. All right. I think Tian wanted to volunteer for HDLs. Tian, do we have you with us? Otherwise, I think someone else can step in. Manat, did you want to? I saw you in the chat pretty early on.
Yeah, I can go.
Cool.
Okay, so just reading the passage. Cholesterol, which is a known factor in the coronary heart disease and stroke, needs a carrier known as a lipoprotein to transport it through the bloodstream. Okay, just taking it as facts. Low density lipoproteins, LDLs, increase the risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. So here, when I read increase the risk, I'm inclined to think that it kind of, in some way, contributes to it. So I'm not, I'm not going to jump into thinking that it's causation.
Right. We have a correlation. They're tentatively concluding, right, that maybe it's a causation, but Manat is skeptical, right? Okay, show me your evidence. Let's see what you can say.
Yeah, so LDLs increase the risk of coronary heart disease and stroke, but we can tentatively conclude that high density lipoproteins, which are HDLs, help prevent the coronary heart disease and stroke. Okay, so LDLs increase the risk of the heart disease and stroke, but we can tentatively conclude that HDLs help prevent it. Not too sure what to think of this. So I'm just gonna move on.
Well, hang on. That's our cue,
Oh,
right? That's our cue to
okay.
dig in for a second. Not too sure
Yeah.
what to think. Let's slow down, make sure we understand what's going on. So we have LDLs. They increase the risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. That's also presented to us as what?
As a fact.
Yeah. So our two known facts, cholesterol is a known factor in heart disease and stroke, and it needs a carrier. One type of that carrier increases the risk. And then what do these words tentatively conclude tell you, Manat, about where the argument is headed?
That they are jumping onto a conclusion that HDLs must prevent it.
Yeah, just because it's the opposite of an LDL, which hurts it, we're gonna now assume that HDLs help, but we don't know that to be true. Also, in terms of parsing out the argument, right? You have your facts, you have to accept those. When they start saying, "Oh, we can tentatively conclude," they are starting to make their conclusion, and that's when we get to start arguing with them.
Okay.
So do you feel better now?
Yeah, I know
Lots
what to
of
think now.
cholesterol in today's class. Yeah. And
Yeah.
as soon as you're thinking, I don't really know what's going on, moving forward is not often gonna give you what you need. What you need has already been said. We just need to make sure we understand it.
Okay. Just moving on now. First, aerobic exercise increases one's level of HDLs. Okay, so they're giving us reasons now to make us believe that that tentative conclusion is true.
Right?
So second, HDL levels are higher in women than in men. Okay. And both aerobic exercise and being a female are positively correlated with lower risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. So, but just because these two situations, well, being a female and aerobic exercise are correlated with lower risk of coronary heart disease and stroke, they're making it the basis for like good evidence for to conclude that HDLs prevent it.
Exactly. We have yet another instance of correlation to causation in the case of cholesterol. So thematic today, right? They're saying, okay, so we see HDL levels higher in women. We see that aerobic exercise increases HDLs, and both of those things are correlated with lower risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. We're taking a string of correlations and trying to prove a conclusion that high density lipoproteins help prevent coronary heart disease and stroke. Manat, what do you think about that?
I think it definitely isn't enough evidence for us to even think on those lines. And even if we do it, there's just a gap. We need more evidence here. That's all I think right now.
I would love some causal evidence
Yeah.
instead of literally admitting that it's just positively correlated, right? We never get to make that jump. So awesome. This is kind of a dense and wordy passage. It's not that long, but it does repeat a lot of terms. So if anyone was having a hard time working through it, that's okay. That's just your cue to slow down for a second and take it one word at a time. We're going to break now for 2 minutes for everyone to talk to the Big Bad Wolf question, write me your prediction and the answer you choose, and then Manat will take us through the answer choices. We're still missing some people's chats, so I'm going to give just another minute. All right. I think we've got the majority of the class in. And again, we had some good predictions, and a good number of you made your way to what I think is gonna be our correct answer choice. But let's work through it and see what we discover. Manat, tell us your prediction after you read this question and some of your thoughts before you head into the answer choices.
Yeah, my predictions were that um the question's asking us what strengthens the argument, except. So I'm going to be given reasons in 4 answer choices that connects the dots between being a female and doing aerobic exercise, which apparently leads me which correlates with lower coronary heart disease and stroke, and how that connects with high levels of HDL. So basically connecting the two dots, and they're going to give me reasons.
Yeah, 4 of our answer choices are going to somehow strengthen the idea that HDLs help. One of them will weaken or will do nothing. And just a note to say that sometimes it's hard to find the answer choice that does nothing, because our tendency when an answer choice does nothing to an argument is to say, well, you know, in any variety of any variety of question types, it's not relevant to the argument, so it's not what we're looking for. But in a strength and accept, right? If it's neutral, if it's not touching the argument, that means that it's not strengthening. And that's what we're looking for in this question type. So keep your eyes alert when you have an accept question type to know exactly what you're looking for to eliminate and exactly what you're looking for to select for your correct answer.
Going into A, HDLs, unlike LDLs, help the body excrete cholesterol. So what we know about cholesterol is that cholesterol needs a carrier, and those carriers are, I'm confusing myself here.
The first sentence, right, tells us
Yeah,
something about cholesterol. What is it?
it's a known factor in the heart disease and stroke. So if it helps excrete cholesterol, then we probably have lower chances of the heart disease.
Yeah.
So
So what would that do to the argument if we added that as a premise?
that would strengthen it. That would give me a reason to believe that HDLs are actually preventing heart disease.
Yeah, there's a mechanism that HDLs are doing. It's not just, oh, we see people who have this lifestyle and have lowered cholesterol. It's like HDLs are doing something in the body. They're excreting cholesterol, which we know is a known factor in coronary heart disease. So that would strengthen. Awesome. Great job.
Persons who are overweight tend to have a higher risk of early death due to coronary heart disease and stroke, and tend to have low levels of HDLs. Well, yeah, this is kind of it's touching upon the aerobic exercise part, and it's saying people who don't exercise, I'm assuming, okay, actually, that's gone too far if I say they don't exercise, but they have low levels of HDLs and are overweight, which, well, low levels of HDLs just does it for me. Um, yeah, well, high level of HDLs prevent it, low levels of HDLs don't. So what is this doing? It's strengthening it.
Right. It's saying people who have a high risk of early death due to the coronary heart disease did not have high levels of HDL. And our argument is trying to prove that HDL helps. So while it wouldn't, if we plugged it into the argument, it wouldn't be that great of a strengthener because it's also a correlation, right? And tend to have low levels, but it is a correlation between you didn't have HDLs to help you and now you're at risk for an early death.
Do you think I should leave this for something that doesn't do anything? I think it strengthens it, but
It's up to you. I do think another correlation is a little bit of a reason to strengthen. But it's not, if we already have two correlations, you're right, it's not gonna do that much for us. So I'll leave it up to you if you wanna eliminate it or leave it open. But as we've all worked through, I think there's probably something less related to strengthening, right?
yeah, I'll eliminate it. HDLs are less easily removed from the bloodstream than LDLs. Huh. I don't know what to think of this. I don't think it does anything to the argument.
I agree with you, right? Does it go somewhere else in the body? Like, is it good if it's in the bloodstream? Is it bad if it's in the bloodstream?
It's probably good if it's in the bloodstream because then it will prevent the heart disease. But I mean, if we push it too hard, it can somewhat strengthen it, assuming that if it's in the bloodstream, it's good for us.
But I don't think we know that,
Yeah,
right? Based on the passage,
yeah,
it doesn't tell us anything, right, about whether or not they're in the bloodstream or not.
yeah, and I would have to assume too much to make
Exactly.
this choice work.
Yeah.
So I think this is the answer, but again, I'll go through D&E to make sure.
Awesome.
Okay, a high level of HDLs mitigates the increased health risks associated with LDLs. So, okay. So the properties of HDLs kind of like cut out whatever risks LDLs have associated to them. So it's good because it's kind of working against LDLs. So it's good. We anyway need high levels of HDLs.
So this does what to the argument?
Strengthens it.
Strengthens the argument.
Sorry, losing my voice.
No
Men's
worries.
levels of HDLs equal to the average level of women have found to have a lower risk of coronary heart disease and stroke than that of most men. So I think this is analogy, or not analogy, but they're just saying that if men were to have the same levels of HDLs as women, because in the premise it's given that women have higher, then they have been shown to have lower risks of heart disease and stroke than most other men who don't have those high levels of HDLs, which ultimately strengthens it.
Absolutely. Phenomenal. Okay, and a lot of people got there in their messages to me that C is the one that really we just don't know what C would do to this argument, but it doesn't have enough of a basis to strengthen it. So in a strengthen accept, C is our answer. Does anyone have questions for Manat or me? Great job on that, Manat. Again, man, some of these passages are a little obnoxious, but that doesn't mean they're not perfectly understandable. And God, people have got to stop drawing causation conclusions about cholesterol. That's what we've learned today. Just don't do it. Don't try it. Okay, awesome. Tian, sorry we lost you there. Did you want to come back and do mathematical proofs for us?
Sure. Okay. Whoops. Mathematical proofs. A mathematical theorem proved by one mathematician should not be accepted until each step in its proof has been independently verified. Okay, so don't accept a proof until each step has been verified. Computer assisted proofs generally proceed by conducting a vast number of calculations, surveying all the possible types of instances in which a theorem could apply, and proving that the theorem holds for each type. Okay, so a computer just runs through every possibility and proving for each type. In most computer assisted proofs, there are astronomically many types of instances to survey, and no human being could review every step in the proof. So the reason why you would use a computer is there's just so many possibilities that you'll never get to all of them. You can never catch all of them.
Yeah, and a computer's gonna do it much, much faster than we could.
So computer assisted proofs involving astronomically many types of instances should not be accepted. So why would it say that it should not be accepted? Because it should be independently verified, and computer assisted proofs do it automatically for every possibility. But then it's like, so I'm already thinking, how do you trust the computer? Just because the computer says so, how do you know that the computer is right?
Okay, so you're agreeing with the conclusion that these types of proofs, which require an astronomical number of calculations, should not be accepted?
Because I think it's also talking about like what it means to independently verify, because it's kind of making the jump between independently verified and computer assisted proofs should not be accepted.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
that's what it's trying to connect.
Monica's getting at something as well. I think you both are, right? Independently verified actually means what in this case, Tian?
It sounds like you need a person to like basically write it out on a chalkboard and show it in by hand. You can't just punch it in the graphing calculator and say, oh yeah, it means you need to actually diagram. It's like for law school, it's like for LSAT, like, hey, I want you to actually diagram this.
Which we never do.
Yeah. I don't
Never
want you to say,
necessary.
oh, put it into Grok or Chat GPT and Chat GPT says this is the answer. I want you to diagram why would Chat GPT show this.
Mm. So independently verified needs to be done by a person, and computers can run all of the calculations, but we cannot independently verify them because people cannot run the calculations the same way that the computers can. There's not enough time in the world. You feel like we have a good understanding of this argument,
Yep.
Tian and class?
Yep.
Awesome. I will give you 2 minutes. Then we're going to talk to the big bad wolf.
Great. Necessary is necessary assumption.
All right, our 2 minutes are up. Seeing everyone in the chat thus far making great predictions and great choices. Let's move through and make sure that we all understand why 4 of these answers are wrong. One of them is right. The LSAT is solvable. Tian, tell me, what was your prediction? Well, what kind of question? I heard you say, right? Necessary assumption. Did that make perfect sense to you based on what we read in the argument?
Sorry, I have to kind of recollect my thoughts for a second,
You're fine.
because it's saying should not be accepted unless it's been independently verified. Why you can't use computer assisted proofs. So the necessary assumption would mean that there has to be a reason why you can't use computer assisted proofs. Because what if you can because what happens is, what if computer assisted proofs are reliable?
Right. You pulled out of the argument that we're not accepting computer assisted proofs because they can't be independently verified. And that means that independent verification requires a person to do it.
Yeah,
But the argument didn't say that, right? That was an assumption the argument made. And it's an assumption the argument made that has to be true for its conclusion to make sense. So
yeah, like my chat GPT analogy. Well, what if we actually know the source code for chat GPT and it is reliable for answering an LSAT question?
right, then the conclusion doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
If a computer can do it, we know ChatGPT can do it, then
why can't we use it?
yeah. So the argument has to have, right? Has to have the information. It is necessarily assuming that computers cannot do it for some reason.
Yeah.
So we need an answer choice that fills in the gap.
Okay, so let's start going down the answer choices. Okay, which one of the following is an assumption on which the argument relies? Necessary assumption. The use of the computer to assist in mathematical theorems has greatly, well, it's not even talking about simplifying the mathematician's task. The author might agree with it that it can simplify, but it's not about simplifying the task. It's about, can I just trust what the computer spits out?
Yeah, and also the argument would kind of not rely on this because ultimately the mathematician's task becomes the mathematician's task again, because apparently the mathematician can't trust the computer to do anything, right?
Yeah. So A is out. B, most attempts to construct proofs of mathematical theorems do not result in demonstrations that theorems are true. It doesn't, that's just not even there. That's not even in the passage about whether or not the theorems are true or not. It's not even about whether it's true. It's about computers and whether or not you can verify the truth. Can you
Yeah,
confirm it?
it's once the computer has said it works, right? Can you then go in and double down? Yes, every time it works. If
Yeah.
it fails, right? Most attempts fail. Okay, we didn't need independent verification anyway, right?
Yeah. Because
Aurora?
if the computer says it fails, it's like, okay, let me check the math where it fails. Oh, okay, cool. You know, I can follow the computer's math. Oh, never mind.
Let's let Aurora. Do you have a quick question?
Yeah, quick question on this one. For necessary assumption questions, I know that for necessary assumption and must be true, if I remember correctly, we are more inclined to select answers that are weaker simply because and then like for sufficient assumptions, like stronger questions. So, but for the purpose of this argument, the thing that kind of turned me off was like many, I think it is, or most, I can't remember. It's most, which I guess most means, yeah, 51% or more. But I feel like, could we have stopped reading basically at most for this one as well? Because we're not necessarily looking, that to me sounds like it's not enough to satisfy, when we're in this, I guess, like exam mode, we're going to want to get rid of like incorrect choices like super quickly. But do you think that the verbiage in the first couple of words for this option disqualifies it on its own?
So I don't know that you would eliminate right at the word most, just because like there is no real information being presented to you in most. I will say I do not get super hung up on strong versus weak wording for question types, because honestly, you could have a sufficient assumption question that has a weak conclusion, and therefore you need a weak sufficient assumption in order to prove a weak conclusion. So your job really is not to memorize like what kind of language is associated with each question type. It's to understand, right, the degree or the severity of the passage that you're working on, and then be sure that the answer choice locks in to that. In this case, I will agree with you. We're not really talking about some or most of anything, right? We need to say for sure that computers are not allowed to independently verify. So I would definitely be cool with you eliminating this. I like most attempts to construct proofs of mathematical theorems, like at that point, right? We're clearly not getting at the meat of whether or not computers can independently verify proofs. Um, but also it's not that much to read the sentence and understand it if you haven't found a good answer yet, right?
No, yeah, that's super helpful. It's just like for me, when I was reading through them, I saw most, and I mean, I kind of already had my prediction, so I was like, I don't really,
Yeah.
I got rid of it,
Already,
but
sorry.
no, sorry, but I got rid of it super quickly. But I just wanted to like see if that's like a good frame of logic to have. Obviously, yeah, read as much as possible. And like, don't only go with like your gut. And obviously, I'm going to read each answer choice, but it was just more like a question in regards to like weak versus strong. But that's a really good point about
Yeah.
the
Don't
weak.
get hung up on it, because it genuinely depends every time. Like this is not a place for tips, tricks, or games. Like the LSAT is just testing whether or not you understand what goes on in the passage, and that's going to vary depending on the passage. So just put your skeptical glasses on and make sure that any of these paths that lead in various directions and not to Granny's house, you're not advocating for them, and you're not also condemning them without understanding them, right? You need to look at it, understand it, and then say, okay, that's not a necessary assumption of this argument. Aurora, great question. Thank you.
Okay, so back to it. And I mean, I wouldn't cut it out at most, because it does use most computer assisted proofs. But it's just that it's just talking about something different altogether.
Yeah.
It's not about showing theorems that are not true. It's saying that you shouldn't trust what the computer spits out, period. Computers cannot be used to assist in generating proofs. Okay, it's starting to sound good. Of mathematical theorems that involve only a very limited number of steps. So you're saying that you can't use computer to generate simple proofs? So like the proofs that you did in high school algebra class? No. It's not about complex, it's not about extremely complex proofs that the possibilities are so many that you can never get to all of them.
Yeah, we're concerned with astronomical, right?
Yeah.
Astronomical proofs, because a human could go in, right, and verify a simple proof that the computer did, right?
You can see right away you can use computers because you can verify by humans. And then like, okay, like your graphing calculator is only doing stuff that somebody had already done the math before.
Awesome.
And said it
Awesome.
works. So you can trust your graphing calculator. There's a reason why in math class they say go ahead, use your graphing calculator. Okay, so now D, any mathematical proof that does not rely on the computer cannot proceed. Well, I can see how this could be a trick, because it's kind of a word salad, but it's basically saying that if you don't use a computer, you can't solve the possibilities. We cannot proceed by surveying all the possible types of instances to which the theorem might apply.
right?
No, that's different from what we were looking for.
And it doesn't, right? If we're not using the computer, there's no way we're bridging the gap.
Yeah.
Cool.
The use of an independent computer program does not satisfy the requirement for the independent verification of each step. So again, like we were saying, it needs to be independently verified. The passage is implying that you need the math nerd, you need the university professor to sketch it out on every chalkboard in the classroom in the math wing of the university to independently verify, and that there's no possible way you can say come up with a computer software that would do the same thing that the math professor just spent his entire summer doing.
Yeah, so this is just a restatement, right? The computer is not sufficient. It's not a person. And this is even more specific in a proof that is extended enough to be otherwise unverifiable, right?
Yeah.
We
So
cannot use a computer
and-
where a human couldn't do the task.
Yeah, for a proof that's so difficult that the math professor can spend his whole entire lifetime and still never get through every possibility.
Amazing.
So the answer is E. And my
Yeah.
guess about D being the word salad wrong answer is apparently the most common wrong answer. People pick D because of the word salad. Well, it sounds complicated.
Well, Tian, we don't know that people pick D because of the word salad. You see a correlation. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Does anyone have any questions on this necessary assumption? Going over D again, any mathematical proof that does not rely on the computer cannot proceed by surveying all possible types of instances to which the candidate theorem might apply. So our concern here is whether or not a computer is allowed or able to independently verify. Our conclusion is based on the assumption that it cannot. As soon as this answer choice starts talking about mathematical proofs that don't rely on the computer, it's outside of our interest. It is not able to bridge the gap between why a computer cannot be the one solving for independent verification, because frankly, they've abandoned the computer right from the get-go. Does that clarify, Quasi, how you were feeling about D?
Yes.
Awesome. Manat?
I just have a question about E, and while I was reading it, till the point that it said, it's not does not satisfy the requirement of independent verification of each step in a proof. Understood that, and that's why I was like, okay, predicted, good. But then it said that is extended enough to be otherwise verifiable. Otherwise unverifiable, I understand, but what do they mean by extended enough? Like,
Yeah, they're referring back to the astronomic number of verifications. So if it's a
Oh.
short, yeah, if it's short and simple, it's like, cool, the computer did it, and then we can have a mathematician come in and verify it. But if it goes on and on and on, it's extending and extending and extending. There's an almost infinite number of things being computed by the computer. Our mathematicians can't get that done, so we can't accept those computer done proofs. Great question. Great work, everyone. Rounds of applause for our volunteers. I'm so proud that we had more volunteers than we were able to get to. Thank you for bringing that energy to class. It is such great initiative to have a live subscription and utilize it by coming to class, turning your camera on whenever possible, participating and asking questions, and volunteering. So I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone who wanted to volunteer, but serious thanks to everyone who was willing and didn't get a chance. We went over an evaluate, a strengthen, and a necessary assumption. In each one, we knew what was going on in the passage. I cannot say it enough. every question on the LSAT is solvable, and most of them are solvable in the passage, because the more time you spend with the LSAT, the more you realize this thing is just on a repetitive loop. Like, we literally saw 2 questions that do almost the exact same thing. And in one we were evaluating, and in one it was a strength and accept. So we were looking for a weaken or a neutral. But right, it doesn't matter like what the question is asking you. If you have followed the path and picked up the crumbs, you know exactly where you're going. You're going to get to Granny's house. You're going to have a great day, celebrate, and then you're going to get down and do the next question, right? Thank you so much, everyone, for attending class today. You guys are the best. I love hanging out with you on Fridays. I will stick around if anyone has questions. And yeah, enjoy your weekend and the holidays.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you.